And here we are live in the Storycraft Cafe. I am your host, Hank Garner, and today I'm super excited to have Julie Olivia with us today. She's got a brand new book. It's been out for a couple of weeks now. It's called If It Makes You Happy. And this book makes me happy, Julie. This is, it's that time of year where summer is, we hope, wrapping up. I live in the deep South, so we could have another 6 weeks to 12 weeks of summer. Who knows, But we did get a little break a couple weeks ago where it was a little cooler. It was like in the 70s, and the humidity was low, and you started getting excited for fall. And you're like, oh, this is, and of course it doesn't last, but you
Yeah.
get that little glimpse of it. And If It Makes You Happy is one of those books that if you're lucky enough to live at a place where you actually have fall, or if you're at a place like I am where you're longing for fall, this is a great introduction to that time of year, and I love it, and I know other people are too. I said all that to say, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm also in the Deep South. I'm in Georgia. So I'm
Okay.
right there with you where these types of books or like this type of media, I consume it like crazy in fall because, yeah, all we get are like little teases of fall. And
Right.
that's the best
Right.
we get. So,
Exactly. We go from summer to a couple of weeks of ice back to summer.
yep, yep,
It's
exactly.
crazy. Well, the If It Makes You Happy is an interesting book because when you flip it over and look at the back cover, um, it immediately tells you the tropes that you're hitting. And romance is one of those genres that never shies away from tropes. And in a lot of other writing circles and different genres, um, tropes almost nobody ever really says this, but you kind of get the feeling that people don't love tropes. Even though tropes are present in everything that we read, that it's why we read what we do. But people don't love to talk about it. Uh, but romance puts it right out there. If you love this trope, this book is for you. And I think people are misguided, mistaken by thinking or saying that because you lean into a trope, that it's just a cookie cutter of of other things that you've seen, and done correctly, that's the farthest thing from the truth. So let me just start by saying, we've got slow burn romance, we've got a single father, and it also takes place in 1997, I
Mhm.
believe, if I remember right. What it first off, what is it that you think allows romance writers to lean into tropes the way that we do and just be very upfront about it and not hide, not bury the lead, just right out there. What is it that you think allows romance writers and readers to talk so openly and not get so bogged down in the trope talk?
That's a really interesting question. I've never really thought about it. I think it boils down to marketing. And obviously, that's what tropes are there for. I mean, similar to what you said, every book has tropes in them, every single one. But
Right.
with marketing, I know I'm speaking from personal experience. I started in the indie space
Okay.
where your book is or your career is 30% writing, 70% marketing because you
Yes.
need to get yourself discovered. Now, every genre is involved in the indie space, obviously, but I do think that romance is very, very present in the indie space.
Big
So,
player for
y-
sure.
exactly. So, I think if I had to guess, the reason why romance as a genre seems that we have adopted it so readily is because we are marketing our books in the indie space. And I think that that has spread throughout marketing in other categories. And once again, I'm speaking from my personal experience, but
Sure.
it's if every book has tropes and if you have voracious readers that know what they like, you tell them, hey, my book does have friends to lovers. And if you like that, you may like my book. I don't see it as any different than, hey, if you like this type of, genre, why wouldn't you like my book? I mean, comp titles, tropes
Right.
are no different, I think.
Gotcha. You said that you came from the indie space. Tell us a little bit about how you got started, and was it always your desire to be a writer? What kind of got you into storytelling first off, and then how did you decide to go the indie route?
Yeah, so it always stemmed from storytelling, just like you said. Wanting to be a writer wasn't always there, but wanting to tell
Mhm.
stories always was. I wanted to be an illustrator for the majority of my life. I
Okay.
say majority of my life, but up until I was like mid 20s, right? It felt
Yeah.
like a long time. I wanted to do Pixar children's book illustrations, comic books. I went through a very big Marvel phase. But I wanted to tell stories. And then when I got to college, my major was mass media arts, which was more video editing.
Yeah.
And I took a screenwriting class and I was addicted from there on out. I liked being able to tell stories long form. So I took a comic idea I had in high school and wrote it as a book. It is not romance. It will never see the light of day because it is
Yeah.
not. Um, but I loved it from there on out. And when I discovered indie romance, like started reading it, I was like,
Mhm.
wow, this is a genre I have been missing out on. I want to see if I can write one of my own because I already love writing stories. And I just fell in love with it. It was the first time I felt like words were flowing from me, like just because at its core, it's just such a character driven genre. And
Mhm.
I love writing about people falling in love because that's when you're most vulnerable, is when you're falling in love. And
Right.
there's so much room for heavy character development in that space. So I went the indie route. It's what I wanted to do from the beginning. I think I really liked the control of it all, which is
Mhm.
my own flaw, I'm sure. But I liked being able to market it the way I wanted to market it, write on my own schedule, and I just didn't see anything else that made sense to me. Um, I've been in indie publishing for going on 6 years, and then last year I was picked up by Berkeley for one of my already indie published titles, and then which is If It Makes You Happy, and then
Okay.
an upcoming new standalone next year.
Okay. And I've just got to reiterate what you said a minute ago, that romance is it's like the definition of character driven.
Yes.
Like if you ever want to look at character development and interpersonal relationships, pick up a handful of romance novels and just look at the way the author, you know, evolves these characters, shows the ups and downs, the whole emotional depth. Romance is really where you need to go to school to learn about writing characters. It's no other genre does it the way romance does, and that's why I'm a huge proponent of reading romance. Are you ever surprised when men read your books?
Yes. So, well, yes and no. It's more just, what are you doing here?
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean?
I understand that.
Like, how did you find me to begin with, kind of thing.
Right.
But when people read my books, when men read my books and they say they love it, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And I'm blown away every time. But yeah, I think romance does character development just so well.
Yeah.
And I love it when that's recognized. I think that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. You said that you started discovering indie romance. How did you discover it? Was it just browsing on Amazon? What did you fall in some writer groups? Like, what was your experience with kind of discovering that this, uh, this whole thing existed out there and that people were writing stories and selling them and all of that?
Yeah, so it was Amazon. I mean,
Okay.
just Amazon top 100. I was looking
Yeah.
for the next read. I had nothing on my TBR, which feels insane now because my to be
Yeah.
read pile is just massive. But
Right.
before I discovered romance, where people are releasing, my favorite authors release fairly often, um, it was just, okay, what's going to be next? And I was in kind of a reading slump. So I went to Amazon to see, okay, well, if it's in the top 100, somebody likes it. And I just went in blind and I fell in love immediately. I think I went from reading like 20 books a year up to about 60. Like I was barreling through it. And yeah, I once I wanted to write my own, I just started looking into, you follow authors on social media and you're like,
Sure.
oh, they're doing indie. What does that mean? And I'm very much a deep diver. I love research. I love learning. And the moment I heard about indie publishing, I was like, okay, what groups can I join? What books can I read? What is all of this? And yeah, I loved it.
That's fantastic. What did you learn from indie publishing? Romance specifically, but were there things that surprised you about the process? About and kind of moving from okay, I finally kind of cracked the code on how to write a book. Now, what I do with this book, like that's a chasm that opens up in front of a lot of authors. Like, oh wow, there's a whole other world here. Like what was your journey into from finally writing a book and kind of taking on this task to then going like how did you get started and how do you find readers? And you ultimately got picked up by a traditional publisher, so you got the attention of people. How did you kind of bootstrap that from not being known by anyone to gaining an audience and ultimately the eyes of Berkeley?
Yeah, it was a lot. I was stumbling as I was going for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I published my very first finished book.
Mhm.
It was, which, a lot of people say not to do that, but I'm really happy I did because I
Yeah.
feel like, yes, there are some books that are in my backlist that I'm like, hey, maybe don't start there. But like learning as you go, I thought it was I wouldn't not do it again. Like I would do it all over again. Because as you're learning to write, you're also learning how to market your books and okay, what do people like? It took a lot of reaching out to people. It's a very, very social career, which sounds
Mhm.
silly because writing is so solo.
Right.
But in the romance community specifically, it is very community oriented. So um, back in it was 2019, so this was before TikTok. I mean, marketing is such a different beast with TikTok now.
Right.
But when it was mostly just Instagram, Facebook, things like that, I was just reaching out to people. I mean, I was rolling into people's DMs. Hey, I wrote this book. I noticed on your account that you enjoy reading these types of romances. Would you be interested in reading mine? And no pressure, but I was working my day job at the time, and I was in between tasks, like on Instagram on my browser, my computer browser, like messaging as many people. Like,
The
it's yeah.
modern equivalent of door-to-door sales.
I mean, yeah, yeah, and it feels weird at first because
Yeah,
sales are always so weird, right? But
it is. It
uh,
is.
it's just reaching out to people. It's getting out there. And like I said, I'm going on 6 years and it took a very, very long time.
Yeah.
There's another thing that I have on Facebook called a reader group. So
Mhm.
people join, we talk about my books, and sometimes we talk about other books and things like that. But for a very long time, it was just me, my sister-in-law, my dad, and one of my friends. And I was just like yelling into the void, and they would
Yeah.
answer my questions. But eventually people joined, and then now it's a community, which is really great. But it's a lot of not being afraid to look silly, not being afraid to be told no, but
Yeah.
still continuing to try. And I mean, learning to write as I was going, not being afraid to be told that my books were trash. Like, um, it's a growing process, but I think learning in the indie space was trial by fire, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do anything else. I think it was
Yeah.
great.
Well, you brought up a great point just a minute ago about starting the reader group, and even though no one really was there, you were still going through the motions and perfecting your pitch, perfecting the art of conversation, so that when people did come, it's not just, beating them over the head with buy my book, buy my book. That's something that I think we don't talk about enough in the indie space is that we see success stories of people that, have found success and found readers and all of that. But there's always a period of time before that where you have plenty of opportunities to get discouraged and give up and all of that before success comes. And a lot of times, if you can tough it out and just keep working on your writing, keep working on your marketing, those things will come. But what do you do in the interim when you can see the future but it's not here yet? Like, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay engaged and, trust that the future holds success even when you can't see it just yet?
Well, so I think
And I'm waxing philosophical today for some reason. I don't know.
no, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I think the thing is about like 50% of the time you don't see that success. Like
Yeah.
about 50% of the time you're going through a period where you're like, oh, I don't think that success will even happen. So what do you do during that time, right? Like, you could say, hey, I don't want to write anymore because I don't think this will work out for me. Or you can say, well, I'm still having a good time. I'm still loving this community that I'm building, and maybe it'll
Right.
work out and maybe it won't. A lot of people do see the getting a book deal or, going full time or whatever, but they don't see the years before that where you had a bad release and the reviews are bad. And you're looking at yourself being like, am I a bad writer? And sometimes you are, and you got to read some craft books, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And that's totally fine. But people
Yeah.
don't see the background work of this didn't work out. Let me pivot and do this instead. Or this did work out. Let me press on that just a little bit more. It's a lot of pushing through the intrusive thoughts of this is not going to work out ever. So I'm just going to stop and trying to find the joy in the process. And there are quite a few books that I wrote strictly because I wanted to find the joy again. And some of them are not my most popular books, and some of them are. And because I found readers that liked exactly what I wanted to write. And it's rolling with the punches. It's,
Yeah.
people don't see the dark stuff. You don't want them to, right? Like that
Yeah.
takes away from the mystique of it all. But
Right.
it's just pushing through.
Can we talk about that for just a second? Because if in indie publishing, we talk about writing to market a lot, and that's another one of those terms that people misunderstand, shall we say, because they think that you're just chasing trends, and that's it really has more to do with finding where readers are and giving them what they want.
Correct.
So it's misunderstood, and then we could spend all day talking about that. But you said that you had to write some stuff that just made you happy, and for creative people, writers specifically, every writer I've ever talked about got into writing because they felt like they had something to say, or they thought they could tell a story that would entertain someone like them, or whatever. But they felt like that they wanted to tell a story that someone else would enjoy for whatever the motivation is. And somewhere along the way, a lot of times we'll get sucked up into, if we find success with one thing, then we need to keep duplicating that. Well, that can get boring or old or whatever, and you have to go find your joy again. How do you balance finding success and following that up with, like you said, other stories that you just for the joy of you as a writer, needing to explore that? How do you balance those two things and not taking for granted the success that you've had and not starting to resent the success that you have because something else is shinier and flashier over here that you want to go, explore?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the writing to market versus writing to trend. It actually
Mhm.
took me quite a while to figure that out myself. For some reason,
Yeah.
my brain could not wrap around that concept. But I think as long as you are writing to market, which means, I mean, you know this, writing, knowing exactly how you're going to market it when it releases, and knowing that people will want to read it, then I think you can do a lot of things. You have a lot of room to play. So, for example, If It Makes You Happy, that was a passion project book. Now, I wasn't sure if people would like what I was writing, but I still went into it with the knowledge of how I would market it. I knew that it would be a fall book. A lot of people really love fall.
Yeah.
I knew that a lot of fashion trends and media trends were gearing toward the 90s. So I was like, okay, I want to write a fall book. I associate the 90s with fall. It would be really fun and engaging to write a book that has way less technology than we have now. That would be a fun creative exercise.
Yeah.
So it even though it was a passion project, in the back of my mind, I was still considering how would this be marketed. And I think as long as that is kept in mind, there's so much you can play with. Where I have messed up in the past is not considering that, saying this is a pure passion project and not considering afterward, does anybody actually want to read about this specific thing? Like anyone
Right.
at all, not even a small person, but it's creating that balance and always keeping that in mind. And advice I was given a while back, like a few years ago, was the first draft is for you and the second draft is for everyone else. So
It's a
write the
great way to
first
look at
draft.
it.
Oh, I love it. Whoever, I can't even remember who told me that, but like a brilliant advice.
Well,
Um,
I'll just quote it as you from now on.
okay. But yeah, first draft is your passion. It's what you want to write. It's everything. And yeah, you should still go into it knowing maybe how you market it, but like keep that out of your brain while you're writing. And then the second draft is, okay, let's make it make sense. Let's make sure that I'm hitting the beats I need to hit. Let's make sure that if I'm writing something like Friends to Lovers, that there are a lot of really good moments that I know readers will expect in a Friends to Lovers.
Yeah.
So it's keeping that balance at all times. I think that allows a lot of freedom as long as you are keeping that in mind.
Gotcha. You mentioned the 90s, and there's and the lack of technology, or the not lack of, but there was, less things available at the time. A lot of mystery and thriller writers are writing some books written in the near past, the 90s, 80s, for that specific reason, because so many terrible situations that people get themselves into in books could be solved by pulling out their cell phone and just calling for help, or, sending a message, "Hey, I'm okay. I'll be home in an hour." And so much anxiety could just be written off because they have a cell phone. So I understand why those types of writers would enjoy the lack of modern technology. What did it do for you? You said that there was a trend, that you were, an itch you were trying to scratch, obviously, but what did it afford you to be able to write in the near past, but still in a time, kind of different from where we are?
Yeah. I'm really happy you asked this question because it was something that I discovered while I was writing that made me love it even more.
Yeah.
It's the idea that things take more effort. And especially in a romance where you want that like yearning for each other,
Hmm.
if somebody's not home, okay, we'll shoot them a text. No, you can't. You got to go find them in this small town. And that requires effort and that requires communication. And it shows a level of commitment that, I mean, everyone loves. And especially in romance, it shows how much you care about the other person. Um, and not that people care less now, but it's
Right.
easier to show support nowadays. Whereas in the 90s or pre cell phones, you had to
Mhm.
work just a little bit harder. You have to memorize people's numbers. Like, I still know my childhood phone number by heart, you know?
Same,
Like,
same, yeah,
it
and all
it's
my friends from 3rd grade.
right. Yeah, exactly. Um, and it's that extra level of care that I think it affords, that level of want, and I think that really resonates with people.
Yeah, I love that. Um, on your website, you've got, a great fantastic website, by the way,
Thank you.
but on your books tab, you've got all of your, existing books listed and broken down by series, and depending on how you look at it, you've got standalones and 4 or 5 series,
Mhm.
s um, when you're writing a series, and when in romance where there's maybe not some cataclysmic event like in some genres, where you could possibly just take a series out to infinity. If you can, find new things to put characters in, you could write as many of those as you want, possibly. Um, how do you handle series and planning series? And do you think of an ending for this series from the beginning? Do you think of it in terms of the same way you think about a book? And like, how do you differentiate the book from a series and series possibilities? And how do you know when readers might be growing tired of a series and, want to move on to something else? How does a romance author think about those aspects of publishing?
Well, so I know it varies from author to author. There are some authors that stop when they're tired of it. There's some
Yeah,
authors that keep going in, like you said, in infinity.
yeah.
I know me personally, I have technically 4 series. The first 2, I was still learning how to write, so they have no structure to them. I just saw a side character and was like, I want to tell their love story now. But starting with my Honeywood Fun Park series, which is a 4-book series set in a small town theme park, I planned that from the very beginning. And I have the last book. They are 2 friends, and the whole series follows a friend group, but those are 2 specific friends in the friend group. And I had their plot going on in the background, and it was
Mhm.
planned from the very beginning. In one of the books, maybe you see them talking by like in the hallway, and you're like, oh, I don't really know what that means, but okay. And so that by the time you got to their book, it started from the very beginning. So you're seeing the plots of the other books go by as their plot is finally happening. So that was planned from the very beginning. The reason why it's 4 books is just because that's how many friends I wanted to write. I felt like more than that, it was too much for me to handle. Um, but it was a arc that was planned from the beginning, and it was part of it was marketing. Like, 4 books is a really good amount of books to have where
Mhm.
maybe people aren't tired of the series yet, but they're also not like craving even more. And also I was like, maybe by the 5th book I'll be really tired, so I had to keep myself in mind as well. um, but the current series I'm working on is 5 books, and I plotted it very similarly. Now, the last book isn't going to have the same structure that the Honeywood series had,
Okay.
but it is very much bookending the series. The most, in my eyes at least, the most important pivotal characters have the first book and the last book, and it's all intertwined together. So
Gotcha.
it is kind of plotted like a story in that sense, but the end I know from the very beginning, and it follows like a series or a family of brothers. So I've got most of the brothers covered, and that was planned from the beginning. But and then once again, keeping myself in mind, I don't know if I want to write a series more than 5 books. I
Understood.
think I want to move on.
We got a great question from our friend Doug that posted. Doug said, "Looking at your books page, there's certainly a distinct, cool vibe to your covers that's very different from the Fox Hill series. What made you decide to go with that style?" And I was noticing that as well, that there's a different vibe to the covers, and with a lot of modern romance, we get uh I'm I'm grasping for words to describe this cover style, but it's the illustrated cover, and then the Fox Hill series is photographic, and it's different. There's a whole different vibe there. Is that on purpose? Is this the evolution of your publishing and marketing, or like what goes into your decision for covers?
Yeah, so evolution's a good word.
Okay.
All of my covers in the beginning were people covers,
Right.
because that is what was on trend at the time if you
Mhm.
were looking for romance novels. At around 2021, that's when illustrated covers were starting to pick up. So
Yes.
I recovered my very first series, which was the Into You series. And then I was just starting the Honeywood series. So I was like, okay, we're going to do illustrated covers moving forward as well.
Yeah.
I did not recover the Fox Hill series because, from a brutally honest author standpoint, I don't think those books are my best work. That is very much when I was still learning to write. So
Understood.
they are deep enough in my backlist that if people love my books and they want just a little bit more of me, they can read them. But
Sure.
it's not worth my effort, and it's not
Understood.
worth the cost to update them.
Mhm.
So that's why they're kind of outliers. But they hold a special place in my heart. But
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a perfectly valid answer. That's it shows that your growth and evolution as an author. And uh yeah, the do you use the same cover artist? You have a very similar vibe throughout your covers. Like, have you found an artist that you work well together with? And that's another thing that when people first start talking about indie publishing is, like you said earlier, you wear all the hats, and so you've got to make relationships with a cover artist, and that becomes a thing. Like how do you find someone that you vibe with and that gets your vision and all of that?
Yeah, I think I got really lucky. So the Honeywood series and then my
Mhm.
Into You series, I illustrated those because
Okay.
I did illustration for the majority of beginning of my career.
Well,
So that was
no one understands you better than you.
it was a very happy coincidence.
Yeah.
Um, but it was taking a lot of time away from
Yeah.
the main part of my job, which is writing and also marketing. And it was very stressful because when you're creating your own art, you're so blind to it. You're looking at it
Right.
too much. You're like, I have no idea if I'm actually on trend with these covers or not. So I was very lucky. I was browsing TikTok one night and I get a lot of art content because I love it. And I saw someone named Allison Cote. She makes a lot of band posters. And I was like, that is an art style I love. So I reached out to her and said, hey, have you ever done romance covers before? And she was like, nope. So she does my Never Harbor series. And
Okay.
then she did the original indie cover of If It Makes You Happy. And then when it got picked up by Berkeley, they wanted to recover it to display more of the small town elements rather than the bed and breakfast, which was initially featured.
Yeah.
So I sent them a few other artists that I had found on Instagram, and they picked one of them, and we went from there. So it's different artists, and Honeywood is actually going to get recovered in the new year by someone who is way more talented than I am. So it's
Love it.
just going with what fits the vibes of the books, and
Yeah.
I do try to keep it all within a similar style, for branding
Yeah.
purposes.
So let's talk about the Berkeley deal. Because indie author, you're selling books, you're gaining readers, all of that. Did Berkeley come to you, or did you submit to, like, how did that the initial relationship happen?
So I think it was 2022, maybe. I had an agent reach out to me because she
Okay.
found me through my Amazon books, and
Love it.
we've been working together ever since. Mostly, we have done subsidiary rights, so
Mhm.
audiobooks and different translations and things like that. We had talked a couple times about doing traditional publishing, but I was like, honestly, I'm really comfortable in indie publishing. I don't
Mhm.
really, it's just not something I'm interested in right now.
Mhm.
But beginning of last year, I was getting, I don't know, I guess complacent is the right word. I was like, okay, I've been doing this for a while now and I'm
Mhm.
enjoying writing, but I want to try something maybe different, maybe pivot, take some risks. So when when I started writing If It Makes You Happy, which was a completely standalone book, not in a series, I was like, hey, how would we feel about potentially pitching this when it's done? And she was like, yeah, let's give it a whirl. So I published it indie first, and then we pitched it after it was finished, and we had a few meetings with a couple publishers, and she did all the legwork. She's absolutely amazing, so I credit it all to her. But yeah, it was just a whirlwind of things that happened. But I had an agent for a couple of years, so I was lucky in that sense that we had already been working together.
Well, I've been doing this long enough to remember when the Kindle revolution happened and indie publishing became a thing, became a viable option for a lot of writers, and carrying the banners against the gatekeepers that were, you remember, all of that. Um, Things have attitudes have shifted a little bit over the last few years, and I think it's the best time ever, because I think now the power is back with the writer, and you can choose to indie publish, you can choose to traditionally publish, you can choose to do both with the same book. As you just published with If It Makes You Happy, you indie published, then it got picked up by Berkeley, and it's now the same book is being now traditionally published, and you really have access to the best of both worlds. How are you feeling about indie publishing now that you've seen it from both sides and are involved in both sides? Were there any things that surprised you, like this is what I assumed about traditional publishing, but maybe it's not quite true, or maybe these things don't exist in the way that I thought they did, or like you never know what you don't know. So we make assumptions about what we don't know, and it's a whole lot easier to be tribal, and to have the us versus them. We're the good guys. We're David fighting Goliath, and sometimes that's true, but not always. So now that you have one leg straddled, on each side of the fence, how do you see publishing, and what the options are like for writers?
Yeah, it's been an interesting experience. I think the us versus them mentality has quieted a lot,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, especially people who are hybrid. Thankfully, I had quite a few friends who had already taken the leap from indie to trad, so I
Mhm.
was able to talk with them about, like, what was your experience? What were the pros and cons for you? And so that made it a little less intimidating. I haven't gone through a full book editing process with them yet because we made very minimal changes to If It Makes You Happy when it got picked up. So I can't
That had
speak
to
to
be a
all.
great feeling.
Oh, it was, yeah. I mean, they've been really, really great about the book from the very beginning. So that it was nice that they were happy with the vision I already created. So that was really
That's
nice.
that's great.
Um, but the editing process I can't speak to, but the marketing process, which is mostly what we've done together so far, has been, yeah, it's been wild. I feel like as an indie author, you're constantly, it's a grind. Like, you're constantly reaching out to people, creating
Mhm.
new content, doing this, that, and the other. And while I am still doing that on my own, none of that has gone away. I am also getting an additional push by a publisher who has connections that I would never have. Like, it
Right.
doesn't matter how hard I work, some of those connections I'm never going to have. And that has been incredibly surprising. um, like, one of the marketing call, like the very first marketing call we had, just kind of breaking down all of the efforts, and if there were some line items that I was like, I don't even know what this means. Like, I don't can you explain what this even is?
Right.
So that has been really cool. It's just been so wild and different, and I think, yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Like, there's
Yeah.
just yeah. So marketing, it's been very different, but also the same. Like, I'm still doing all of the marketing
Yeah.
efforts on my side, and um, my sister-in-law, she runs a PR company for indie authors, and so I've worked
Okay.
with her for a few of my indie releases, doing like PR boxes. She'll run my art campaigns, like the early copies we send out to readers.
Mhm.
And she told me somebody was talking with her the other day and was like, oh, Julie must really love TradPub because she doesn't have to market as much. And I'm like, and she was like,
LOL. Yeah.
yeah, she was like, she's literally marketing this re-release as if it's a brand new release, like the same exact efforts, like nothing has
Right.
changed on my side.
Right.
So it's, you know, it's the same but different. Like it's the
Yeah.
same, but you have a buddy helping you out who has a lot of connections.
Right. Right. That's a great way to look at it because yeah, and I've done more than 2,000 author interviews, and what I've learned from traditionally published authors is, yes, you have people that are partnered with you that have connections, like you said, but you still have to get out there and grind and make connections for yourself and get the book out in front of people. And that's just the reality of it. You know, the idea of the writer sitting in the ivory tower tossing a book, you know, out to their publisher and they just run it. That's silly, you know, and doesn't exist in anything. Um, Excellent. So, what are you working on now? If it makes you happy is out, you know, again, traditionally published now. What are you working on now? What's your next release coming up? And, you know, how has this new aspect to your publishing career, how has that affected your output and your schedule and all of that?
Well, it's been really nice having a re-release because for the first time ever, I'm a book ahead, which never happens.
Nice. Yeah.
It indie is so fast paced that normally I will finish writing a book and then a month or two later I'm releasing it after,
Right.
it's a bunch of marketing. So, as this re-release has been going on, I've been working on the next book that they signed me for that will likely release like late next year. So I'm working on edits for that right now. And then after that, I'm going to work on the next book I'll release in the spring. But once fall rolls around, we'll be releasing the book I have already written. So I'll have the rest of 2026 to just write books and not have to worry about immediately releasing them. So
Yeah.
being one book ahead has just been, it feels like a game changer. Like I feel like I'm not scrambling all the time. So that's been really nice.
Nice, nice. Well, if it makes you happy, available everywhere now. Go pick it up at your local bookstore. If you don't have a great local bookstore, we'll put links to it in the show notes where you can pick it up from Amazon, and get your copy today. Julie, we mentioned your website a minute ago, but if people are just discovering you and want to dig into all that you're up to and your fantastic back catalog and all that, is your website the best place for them to go to? Where all can they find you online?
So you can go to my website. That's kind of the central hub for everything. And on my website, at the very bottom, I have links to my social media. My Instagram is where I am most active, and I have a pinned post that is a book guide to all of my books. So
Love it.
it's a checklist, but also it breaks down like, hey, what if I'm looking for a slow burn? Well, here are my books that have slow burn. So I've kind of made it easy for people to find what they may be looking for. But website's good, Instagram's good. I'm pretty much everywhere.
Wonderful. Julie, this has been so much fun getting to chat and, picking your brain about all things romance, indie publishing, trad publishing. Thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
Thanks, everybody.